Welcome back to the Impact in Action weekly live show where we talk about mindset shifts and tactical approaches to help you put your impact in action. So, guess what? I am a terrible disciplinarian when it comes to my kid, right? So I learned this very early on when my kid was about 3 years old and they started putting themselves in timeout. They would go do the thing that they knew they were not supposed to do, and then they would walk up to me, stare me in my face, and walk over to the bottom step and put their butt down. Bottom step was like the timeout spot, and they'd put their butt down. And they'd say, "I'm in timeout." And I was like, "Oh, shit, I'm screwed," right? For whatever reason, I was never any good at setting boundaries. And I knew at that point in time, that I was never going to get any better because my kid was smarter than me. So rules in general are not my favorite thing. I don't like them. When people try to get me to follow them, I have an immediate distrust of those folks. I'm always asking, okay, well, why does this rule exist? Who wrote that rule and who is benefiting from me following that rule? Now, this approach has had its disadvantages and advantages in my life, but one of the things that I know in my disinterest and my challenge for following rules is that without understanding how to follow them, I had a hard time really understanding why they were important. Because in many ways, boundaries are like rules, right? It took me some time to figure out how I could set rules that were there to protect me, not to confine me. So my name is Maryann Lombardi. I am the founder and CEO of Maryann Lombardi Coaching, and I help women and non-binary entrepreneurs take bold action to build a profitable business that aligns with the life that they want to live. And this week, we are digging into how to set boundaries that stick. Your boundaries are the things that communicate to other people what your values are, your priorities, and how, very importantly, you want to be treated. And often they can be hard to set and enforce because we aren't committed to, or maybe we don't know what our values and our priorities are, or how we wanted to be treated in the first place. So let's dig into the 3 steps for creating boundaries that stick. So number 1 is all about reflection, right? A boundary is a line that clearly identifies to other people a limit of an area, right? And often we hit a snag with boundaries when we try to set a limit on something without knowing what that boundary is there to protect in the first place. So your boundaries exist to protect your time, they protect your attention, and they define for people how you expect to be treated. But if you don't know why you are protecting your time, for example, what do you need or what do you want to be doing with that time before you're spending time on other things, you're easily going to get drawn into other activities. So similarly, if you don't know what you want or need your attention on, you're going to find yourself doing a whole bunch of tasks that don't lead you to what your life or your work goals are. And again, most importantly, if you don't know how you should be treated, other people are going to treat you based on their values and their priorities, not your own. So also, boundaries are impossible to enforce if you don't know why you are protecting your time, what you want your attention on, and how you want to be treated. So it's important to reflect on these things often to make sure it's clear to you what you're protecting. Now, we can do this by creating what I like to call boundary statements, especially if you struggle with boundaries, creating boundary statements every day, making it a habit and a ritual, sort of sitting down with your coffee in the morning and writing them out in your planner or your notebook for the day is a really useful thing to do. So for example, here are a couple boundary statements. Today, I am prioritizing my time for A, B, and C. Any other demands on my time can wait. Another one. Today, I am putting my attention on A, B, and C. Any other demands on my attention will have to wait. Another one. Today, you will treat me with X. If you do 1, 2, or 3, I will do Y. These boundary statements will help you start making and setting boundaries a daily habit. So the second thing we need to do is we need to define it. We need to define what our boundaries are. We've reflected on the importance of them, and now we need to define them clearly because there is a hierarchy to your time and attention. Some things take priorities over others. You are the only one who can define what those priorities are, but you have to define them if you want to enforce them, because if you don't define them, other people will. So setting a boundary isn't about just saying no. It's about saying no to something specific. So let's define it. Let's take our boundary statements again. The statement is, today I am prioritizing my time for A, B, and C. Any other demand on my time can wait. So what is A, B, and C? How do you want to spend your time? So, for example, maybe you have been neglecting your health and you need to prioritize time for that. Or maybe you agreed to give advice to a colleague on a pitch that they're working on. Or perhaps you have a project that really needs your time today. So if those are the three things that need your time, that you've decided need your time, we can fill them into this statement. So, for example, today, I am prioritizing my time for my health, supporting my colleague, and doing my work. Any other demands on my time can wait. So we can do the same thing with our attention. The statement reads, today I'm putting my attention on A, B, and C. Any other demands on my attention will have to wait. Now, your attention is linked to your time. You've already set your priorities for time, so now you can more easily define where you put your attention. So let's keep this same example and fill it in. Today, I am putting my attention on taking a long walk outside to improve my physical and mental health. Another, today, I am putting my attention on listening to and providing feedback for my colleague's pitch. Any other demands on my attention will have to wait. Today, I am putting my attention on finishing the first draft of the new project presentation for work. Any other demands on my attention will have to wait. This is how we use our boundary statements to help us define how we want to spend our time and our attention. So let's jump forward and talk about how we want to be treated. So the statement again is, today you will treat me with X. If you do 1, 2, or 3, I will do Y. You will notice in this affirmation, in this boundary statement, you have qualifiers. So you can make clear to yourself and then to other people specifically what you mean and the consequence for people not respecting your boundaries. So for example, today you will treat me with respect. But let's go further and define what respect looks like to you. Today you will treat me with respect. If you yell at me, repeatedly interrupt me, or insult me, I will remove myself from your presence. So this brings us up to the third step in setting boundaries that stick, planning ahead. By thinking about it beforehand, it allows you the opportunity to practice it. This is super important, especially when it comes to how you expect to be treated. So your affirmation, your boundary statement lets you choose how you want to be treated, what it looks like when you are not treated that way, and what actions you're going to take if that boundary is crossed. So we can all want to be respected, but what that respect looks like and feels like to each of us can be different. So thinking and defining that ahead of time is super helpful at getting to know yourself and then helping you define and enforce that boundary. It is also valid to think about what actions you have access to when enforcing that boundary. This is really important, right? So your options are going to be different depending who you are, what you do, where you live, your circumstances. But it's important to know what those options are when your boundary is crossed. So if we go back to this example, today you will treat me with respect. If you yell at me, repeatedly interrupt me, or insult me, I will remove myself from your presence. So now, not everyone would be able to remove themselves from the presence of this person. Someone else might be able to report them to HR if it's a work thing. Someone else might have to make a different choice, shut the phone off or stop texting somebody or blocking them or something like that. But thinking about it beforehand lets you practice your option, which makes it much easier to enforce when it comes up. Because practicing it, you have all of the power, right, in practicing it. But when you're in front of somebody else, there's all sorts of other stuff that comes up. So having the opportunity to practice it is key. So the same is true for your attention, right? Today, I am putting my attention on taking a long walk outside to improve my physical and mental health. I am also listening to and providing feedback for my colleague's pitch. I am also finishing the first draft of my new project presentation, and any other demands on my attention will have to wait. So what actions will you take to protect this boundary? Maybe it is about turning off the notifications on your phone. Maybe it's about finding a private space to work on that project, or working on your colleague's pitch. Whatever it is, coming up with how you are going to do it is just as important as defining it. So planning ahead is key. So let's recap these 3 steps to setting boundaries that are sticky, that are going to stick. The first is reflecting on it. Think about the things that are important to you so that you know what you're protecting in the first place. The second is defining it. Use those boundary statements and to state clearly how you are prioritizing your time and attention and how you expect to be treated. Make it clear and then plan for it. Practice what it looks like when you enforce those boundaries, what you will do and what you will say. These 3 things will help you create boundaries that are going to be sticky. So try it out, right? And let me know how it goes. What about this is easy? What about it is more difficult? I'd love to hear about that. Where do you struggle with when it comes to the boundaries? Is it the first part? Is it the second part? Is it the third part? Let me know. We can continue the conversation in my Facebook group. It's at facebook.com/group/impact in action group. And let's keep the conversation going. So thank you for spending your time with me, and I'll see you next time.